Like any good marketing campaign, you want to make sure that you know exactly who you're talking to so that you can be effective. Are we just here for visibility? Are we trying to make like a sale? Any of these things, they're important aspects to putting together the type of activation that's right for your brand. Become close friends with all of your vendors and your contacts. Having those close relationships and those trusted vendor partnerships can make a really big difference in the speed that you can make your work and the quality. It's really, really wise to make your in-person activations link up with a social media activation, track progress by how many people are engaging with you.
This is Between Two Pixels, the podcast for anyone who wants to reach and connect with their audience through content and marketing.
Hey, I'm Katie, Director of Marketing at Between Pixels, and you're on the Between Two Pixels podcast. Today, I'm joined by Abby, who is our Brand Activation Marketing Manager. So we're going to get right into it.
Yeah.
What is Brand Activation Marketing?
So Brand Activation Marketing is essentially a form of marketing that happens in terms of events, activations, experiences. We're trying to generate awareness of the brand and create memories. And so that happens sometimes, mostly in person historically, but digitally it's growing in that field as well.
What's an example of a type of activation, or maybe one that you've done in the past?
Mm-hmm. So let me give you two that are kind of on the far ends of the spectrum from each other. So it could be anything from, being at a trade show and being there with ambassadors, with iPads, trying to do lead collection and then create a personal experience in a space. I did an activation for a car insurance company. It's specifically a rideshare car insurance company, and they were just trying to capture leads, get people out there and get some visibility. And so we came up with a creative idea of getting a lot of branded swag, things that people need in cars, like sunglass holders and like utility type things, tire pressure gauges, all that stuff, putting them in a swag bag and then getting in and out of Ubers and, calling rides and while you're in the car, giving them one and talking to them about it. It was actually extremely interesting to talk to people and hear about rideshare car insurance.
I love that. I know we talked about it a lot when you were coming on. I was like, that is so creative, like doing something so different. Why should companies be using this sort of marketing? It's very like boots on the ground. It's very different from what I think people are used to.
Yeah. I think one of the major and main benefits of it is that it's extremely direct. You're getting into the audience, into the field that you are trying to infiltrate's not the right word, but get to know. And there's no better way, I think, to do that than talking directly to those people. And I think one of the huge benefits of it as well is that all of it's organic, right? So you are connecting with these people in real time. You're not just having conversations about the product or the brand, but you're having conversations with the people, how they are, what it's like to be them, and how that this product can benefit them, So I feel like that's creating that emotional connection to it, and that nice memory that you want people to associate.
And I know there's so many different layers to it, like how the size of these kind of activations. Mm-hmm. You can do such large scale stuff. Like we've been talking a ton about House of Dragon with Game of Thrones. We're seeing a giant inflatable dragon on Empire State Building, and maybe brands don't have that kind of budget.
Sure.
But if you're doing something as big as that, or maybe something super teeny tiny, what are some things that make it a success?
Some important factors that make a brand activation a success is extremely careful planning. So no matter the size of the activation, whether it's huge inflatable dragons or, just going to a festival and handing out postcards, you don't want to show up and not anticipate that you're going to be able to give out all these postcards and run out, and then you don't have anything to give and you have more people to talk to. So even little things like that, and thinking about the details, I think it's really important to have a very careful, detailed run of show, contact sheet, so that when you're there and you need to talk to somebody, it's very easy to get in touch. So I think that kind of careful planning is the first thing that I would think of. So I would say the second thing about that, and honestly, I guess comes before the careful planning, is making sure that you know your audience. Like any good marketing campaign, you want to make sure that you know exactly who you're talking to so that you can be effective, and make sure that your event is there to entertain, delight, surprise, inspire, any of those things. I think it's easy to not have an intention behind, showing up to something and saying, we want to be present. And you've got to think, what am I present for? I mean, what's the goal? Am I trying to collect leads? Are we just here for visibility? Are we trying to make like a sale? Any of these things, they're important aspects to putting together the type of activation that's right for your brand.
And I know you mentioned the audience, like how important that is. How is activation marketing tapping into that kind of consumer psychology? I feel like so often we're really trying to know these people, like
right,
as granular as possible, from their income to their hobbies and all these things. How are you doing that in an activation setting?
In an activation setting, I mean, tapping into who they are as people, essentially with having that one-on-one connection, that in-person connection, the goal is to, put an emotion or memory, like I'd said, something memorable behind the experience. People remember interactions pretty easily. I mean, you might click through something a bunch of times, and it takes a little while for it to gel, but if you have a really, really positive experience and you're at something that you're having a great time at, and just overall the experience is fantastic, it's going to attach that with your brand, and that's the goal,
So positive sentiment, definitely a factor.
Absolutely.
And measuring, how else are you kind of measuring the impact brands are having on the community when they do these kinds of events?
A few of the things that you can use are definitely social media metrics. It's really, really wise to combine efforts and make your, in-person activations link up with a social media activation. And you can definitely track progress by how many people are engaging with you. And then I think another important aspect or another important marker is conversions, and are people showing up, customer loyalty. Is your website getting more traffic after this event? I mean, you have to carefully track those things in terms of segmenting those hours and seeing, how many website hits are we getting over the next 2 days after this event. I think that's a really good way to track it. But also something as simple as knowing exactly how many flyers you have in your hand, and at the end, if you have any left, counting, seeing exactly what you were able to give out.
I love that, because so often what we do in the marketing space, I feel like you can't always quantify it.
Right.
And brands want to know, how are we measuring this? Like, how did we know it actually worked?
Right.
Kind of shifting gears, how do things not work? What are maybe some common pitfalls, common mistakes that you see happening in this activation space?
Sure. Speaking to what I said earlier about the importance of organization, that is a common pitfall. Not knowing enough about what you're going there to do or what you're doing. Something as simple as not knowing where to park at a busy event can totally throw off the hours that you intend to be there, or not having a contact, not knowing where you're going, or not bringing enough stuff. So those are common pitfalls I see. Another one is not having the right representatives for your brand. So, I mean, you want somebody, or you want a group of people who embody the brand's mission, the entire personality that you're trying to build around the brand, so that they can bring that to life. And so if you've got someone who doesn't know as much about it or isn't as confident having those kinds of candid conversations, that can be really challenging and bring less people to you. And I would say the last one is not knowing what the big picture is in terms of your campaign and what this is for. Like I'd said before, very easy to think that a brand activation is just showing up and giving out flyers and trying to be present, which it is totally valid. But is that serving the purpose, the greater goal of what you're trying to achieve in that moment?
Totally. So strategy, I feel like we always talk about strategy. Clearly there needs to be a strategy in place for activation marketing, but you kind of touched on having the right people in the right seats.
Yeah.
Do you recommend training brand ambassadors? How do you maybe go about finding the right people for a brand?
Absolutely. I definitely recommend training ambassadors. I think you can give them a lot of information. I think that in-person trainings and Zoom trainings with them are fantastic so that you can talk through it. But I think you need two versions. You need like the long version, you need the all the details, the nuts and bolts, everything. And then you need the one pager that's like commonly asked questions, phrases that we're trying to solidify, things like that they can use to make sure that they're able to bring their best forward. So I definitely recommend trainings and having documents and things that list the one pager that list all of the things in one place so that they can revisit it.
I need a one pager. I've done some of these events, and I feel like no matter how well you know a brand,
right,
you're just in the moment, you're on the spot, and you're like, I forgot this very important detail. And just having that as like a security blanket to look at is huge. I want to shift gears a little bit because being a social person, I love to talk about trends.
Sure.
But are there trends in the activation marketing space that you're
Absolutely.
seeing?
Yeah. There are a ton of trends that are emerging in activation marketing. So one of the big ones that is encompassing many fields right now is virtual experiences, augmented reality, things like that. That's really existing a lot in trade show spaces, in bigger events, Another popular trend that's emerging in brand activations is connecting with social media, bringing in influencers and creating live events out of those. Another one that I'm seeing a lot is puts a focus on sustainability. So that's a big trend. I think it's been a big cultural shift as well into, people really valuing and caring about the environment. And a lot of companies are now making that one of their brand values and trying to look at their practices and see how they can be more sustainable. And that can make for a fantastic brand activation. So those are a few that I'm seeing.
Is there any one of those in particular that you're most excited about, or one that you've been dying to kind of try out or experiment with?
Yeah. Augmented reality and virtual sounds cool. I mean, I think one thing that's really nice about that is the ability to personalize for every single person. So you spoke to, how do we get to know these people on an individual level? Well, that's really, really difficult in terms of the volume of people you're trying to see and trying to reach. So create an experience where something is personalized from some sort of, on-site art piece that can be made, or, sometimes AI or whatever, but down to something as simple as like you're giving out branded cookies and you have someone there putting names on them.
Cookies sound delicious.
Yeah. So little things, they matter and they make a big impact.
What are some overall best practices or insider tips you might give a brand that's trying to dabble in this space? A
couple of tips that I would give people who are trying to get into the brand activation space and kind of open their repertoire of that is the number one, I would say, for me, in my experience, is to become close friends with all of your vendors and your contacts. The more people that you can call in a moment's notice and they know a lot about you, they know what you're doing. Essentially, relationship building, which is important to marketing in general. But having those close relationships and those trusted vendor partnerships can make a really big difference in the speed of work, or the speed that you can make your work, and the quality. So that's one of the tips. Another tip that I would say is very, very helpful and impactful is, go out and see what other people are doing. I mean, get out in the field. It's very useful to scroll social media and see what people are doing on their websites and how they're capturing that content. But it's even more effective to go in person and go to a festival, see what tents have tons of people and which tents don't. See what other people are doing in terms of connecting with audiences and make it your own, however you can apply it to your own specific brand. I mean, that's the best way to get ideas, is to go out in the world and see them, I feel. So on-site research.
I love it. Those are all great tips. Some people might not want to do this themselves.
Sure.
And not to do a shameless plug, but we, of course, do activation marketing here, and you're leading that kind of service for us. How would a brand kind of go about working with an agency? Like, what are some things you recommend for brands starting out and working with an agency partner to do activation marketing?
Absolutely. So, of course, the first thing is reach out, shoot us an email, let us know who you are, and come to us with some information. What are your goals for the brand activation? Where is the hole in the marketing campaign that you believe that this is going to fill? Because that's really important information as to how we go about it. Reach out with any ideas or areas or audiences that are important to you, because what you do in certain areas is going to be different. So have an idea of all of those basic needs before you come to us. Unless you'd like us to build obviously a larger marketing strategy, but having those specific things is very helpful, and having an idea of budget is also extremely helpful.
For me, I feel like that's the beauty of agencies. And when I've been on the other side of the fence, not in an agency setting, but working with agencies, it's like, here's this mess. Can you guys make sense of this? As like an outside party, because I feel like as an agency, you have like a different level of like looking at it, maybe more objectively than when you're so in it and you're in the brand, you're really passionate. You have some people who are poking holes in things like, wow, I never really kind of thought about that before. And it's interesting for us, we were not in the activation space before. And one of our clients was rapidly growing, Abby Health, and entering different markets, and felt it was really important to get in the community, put a face behind healthcare, making it super personal. And we felt it was important that we could develop this and make sure we support them along every step of the way, because so much of what we're doing from a strategy standpoint and building these marketing campaigns is setting up the foundation for activation marketing. So the messaging guide, how you're kind of engaging with individuals, really can apply directly to what we're doing in the brand activation space. So super exciting to see it grow from pop-ups to full-fledged activations to guerrilla marketing, all these different fun things. So we're excited to have you, of course, on board for that. Speaking of activations, anything you've been to, maybe in the Atlanta area or just in the last few years, that you really enjoyed as a non-working marketing person experiencing it?
An activation that I've actually been to several, are markets, specifically like makers markets and things like that, that are representing a specific property or brand. They're curating their content, or their vendors rather, to what makes sense for them. Properties will do that a lot to get some traction around their property, because they'll be partnering with larger vendor companies within Atlanta who have an even bigger base of advertising. So those are ones that I attend all of the time, but there's lots going on.
And would love for you to talk about just how we're going to be working with clients in the activation space, how you're going to be coming on and working with clients to get them involved and doing more of this kind of community outreach.
Absolutely. So a couple of the things that we have in the works right now, we are doing some things for grand openings to start advertising for that. With our client, specifically Abby Health, a primary care facility that's growing rapidly. They have a ton of locations opening. And so coming up, we have a few chalk art installations with their branding and some fantastic art from local artists. and just trying to get those in places where people are going to see them, high visibility areas, and create some interest and show the community that we're there, very, very present and very physically. A few of the other things that we're doing some mobile advertising. So we have an incredible van that's been wrapped with fantastic branding with their logo and everything. And we'll stop into local businesses, give them information on what ALO is, ask if they're interested in connecting in terms of partnerships, and just really getting involved.
I love it. I'm definitely going to be looking at activations a little bit differently now that we've been getting more involved, and I've been seeing kind of behind the curtain how they come together. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks to everyone who's watching. Make sure you subscribe to the Between Two Pixels podcast, and we'll see you next time.